Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. Before we dive into this heartwarming story, hit subscribe so you'll never miss the most courageous dog tales we share every day. This is the tale of a loyal Labrador named Leo, a ghost of a criminal named the Phantom, and the silent courage that saved a family. What if the greatest hero in a story isn't the one you expect? What if he has four paws, had a wet nose? It was a Tuesday evening in the tranquil suburb of Northwood, the kind of night where the air was crisp and the distant hum of the city felt a world away. Inside a modest two-story house, a golden-haired Labrador named Leo was sprawled on his favorite rug by the fireplace. A gentle, contented rumble emanated from his chest, a sound that was a constant in the life of Officer Ben Carter. Leo wasn't just a pet. He was Ben's shadow, his partner, his closest friend. They had a bond forged not just in the rigorous crucible of canine training, but in the quiet, shared moments of everyday life. A nudge of a wet nose for a belly rub, the soft thump of a tail against the wooden floor, the unspoken understanding that passed between them. It was a life of simple, beautiful rhythm, work, rest, and a partnership built on absolute trust. Ben, a man weathered by a decade on the force, sat in his armchair, a half-read book resting on his lap. He often found himself just watching Leo, marveling at the incredible duality of the animal. By day, Leo was a machine of justice, a highly trained canine officer with a sense of smell so acute that it could pick up a single dropped clue from a mile away. But at home, he was just Leo, a goofy, toy-loving dog who would chase a tennis ball until he was utterly exhausted, a loving heart wrapped in golden fur. This quiet night, however, was about to become the defining moment of their lives, a sharp break in their predictable routine that would test the very limits of their bond, their training, and their courage. The shrill, insistent ring of the police radio shattered the stillness, the code a familiar jolt to Ben's system. It was an urgent call, the kind that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Leo was on his feet in an instant, his tail giving a few excited thumps on the floor, his ears perked, sensing the change in Ben's posture, the sudden tension in his human shoulders. This wasn't a routine call. The dispatcher's voice was clipped, urgent, reporting a home invasion in the quiet heart of Northwood. A single mother, Sarah, and her young daughter Lily were being held hostage. The perpetrator? A notorious criminal, known only by a single chilling name, the Phantom. The Phantom wasn't a common thief. He was a myth, a ghost, a criminal so cunning he left no fingerprints, no witnesses, and no trace. He had terrorized the state for years, and every case linked to him had gone cold. He was a shadow that haunted law enforcement, a psychological tormentor who never left enough evidence to be caught. But tonight he had made a mistake. He had left a chilling note at the scene, a direct challenge to the police. You can't catch a ghost. It wasn't just a threat, it was a taunt, a game he was inviting them to play. The stakes were immeasurably high. This wasn't about a stolen safe or a few pieces of jewelry. This was a desperate plea for help from a mother and her child, their lives hanging in the balance, their fate resting on the swiftness of an officer and his dog. As Ben clipped on Leo's vest, his hands were steady, but his mind raced, 100 different scenarios playing out in his head. "Ready, boy?" he whispered, his gaze locking with Leo's. The dog responded with a soft whimper, his eyes full of a focused intensity that went beyond simple obedience. It was a promise to find the scent, to track the Phantom, to bring Lily and her mother home safe. This was the moment they had trained for, a moment that would transcend duty and become a mission of pure selfless courage. Ben and Leo's squad car tore through the night, a silent guardian racing against the clock. They pulled up to the crime scene, the flashing red and blue lights painting the street in a macabre dance. The air was thick with the scent of fear and adrenaline. But Leo, ignoring the human chaos, lowered his nose to the ground, his body a study in stillness, a silent hunter looking for the first faint clue. He was no longer just Ben's dog, he was Northwood's last hope. He was a hero in the making, and his story was about to begin. The game had been laid, the board was set, and the first piece was moved by a single, determined paw. The chase began in the heart of suburbia, where the scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the metallic tang of fear and the faint, elusive trail of the Phantom. Leo, a blur of golden fur and unwavering focus, led the way, his nose a compass guiding them through a labyrinth of manicured lawns and identical houses. Ben followed, his heart pounding in time with Leo's determined paws, the world fading into a singular, desperate pursuit. But the Phantom was a master of misdirection. The chase led them to an old industrial district, a place where the air was a chaotic symphony of chemical fumes and exhaust that threatened to overwhelm even Leo's hypersensitive nose. For a terrifying moment, Leo stopped, his head snapping from side to side, a look of profound confusion in his eyes. He had lost the trail. Ben's heart sank, a cold wave of doubt washing over him. Had the Phantom finally outsmarted them? "What is it, boy?" he whispered, his voice tight with anxiety. He felt a moment of despair, a whisper of a thought that this was it. Just as Ben was about to call for backup, Leo's tail gave a single, firm wag. He hadn't lost the scent. He had found a new one, a scent that was achingly, impossibly familiar. It was the scent of a rare night-blooming jasmine that only grew in Ben's backyard garden. A terrifying realization washed over Ben. The Phantom wasn't just a criminal. He was someone who had been watching him, watching his home, his family. The chase was no longer about a criminal. It was deeply, terrifyingly personal. Ben's panic gave way to a cold, hard resolve. This wasn't a random act. It was a calculated game. The Phantom was trying to break Ben's focus, to make him doubt his partner, to make him doubt himself. Ben pushed the fear aside, trusting in the one thing that had never failed him, Leo's instincts. "Find it, boy," he commanded. Leo, with a newfound sense of urgency, took off again, his movements even more determined than before. The Phantom may have laid a trap, but he had underestimated the unwavering bond between a man and his dog. The real chase, the one for his family's safety, had just begun. The chase culminated at an abandoned warehouse, a decaying monument to a forgotten era. The Phantom was there, cornered, a defiant sneer on his face. Ben ordered him to surrender, but the man just laughed, a hollow, cruel sound. "You're too late, officer," he taunted. "You found the wrong person." Just as Ben was about to make his move, Leo let out a low growl, not at the Phantom, but at a pile of old crates. Ben, with a jolt of instinct, knew his partner was onto something. Behind a false wall, they found a hidden chamber. Inside lay not just the stolen jewelry, but a chilling discovery: counterfeit passports and identity cards. The Phantom wasn't a burglar, he was part of a major human trafficking ring. But the biggest shock was still to come. As Ben secured the scene, a young woman emerged from the shadows. Her eyes held not gratitude, but a chilling, distant blankness. She was one of the victims, a girl who had been reported missing for months. But she wasn't just a victim, she was an accomplice, brainwashed by the Phantom, and she was the one who had deliberately laid the trap for them. Ben's victory felt hollow, his relief replaced by a new, gnawing sense of betrayal. The Phantom, seeing his plan exposed, made one final desperate move. But Leo, ever vigilant, moved in a flash, subduing the criminal with a swift, decisive motion. The game was over, but the full truth had yet to be revealed.
The city celebrated, but for Ben and Leo, the victory was heavy. Back home, Leo was no longer the goofy, happy dog. He was restless, refusing to eat or play. He would stand by the window, staring out into the night, his tail motionless. Ben was worried, thinking it was the trauma of the chase, but deep down, he knew his partner better than that. It wasn't until Ben sat with Leo, comforting him, that he noticed a faint, chemical odor on the dog's fur. It was a unique, acrid scent, a smell he remembered from a cold case years ago, a case he had failed to solve, a case of a missing young boy, never found. It was then that Ben realized the truth. The Phantom wasn't done. He had left a hidden clue, a chemical marker that Leo's hypersensitive nose had detected. It wasn't a random scent. It was a ghost from Ben's past, a message from the Phantom about a crime he had committed long ago. Leo's restless anxiety wasn't about the present, it was about the past. He was telling Ben there was another victim, a ghost that needed to be found. And so the chase began again. Ben and Leo were fueled by a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer hunting for a criminal. They were hunting for a ghost, a lost soul, a victim who had been waiting for justice for years. The new pursuit led them to an old abandoned factory, a chilling echo of Ben's past failure. There, Leo's unwavering nose led them to a hidden room. Inside, they found a terrified young boy, the very boy from Ben's cold case. The Phantom had kept him captive for years. It was a heart-stopping moment of triumph and relief, a second chance Ben never thought he would get. The city held a ceremony to honor the heroes. Ben was given a commendation, but in a moment of profound humility, he took the stage and brought with him the young woman, the one who had seemed like an accomplice. But he revealed a truth she had whispered to him just before they found the boy. She was a victim herself, brainwashed by the Phantom, but she had fought back, leaving the final critical clue for Ben to find. "This is not my victory," Ben said, his voice ringing with emotion. "This is her victory." Courage is not just in facing a criminal, it is in finding the strength to speak up even when you are afraid. The story of Ben and Leo became a legend, a testament to the power of a man's trust in his dog and the courage of an unsuspecting hero. It was a story not just about a chase, but about redemption, forgiveness, and the hope that even in the darkest of moments, a single act of bravery can change everything.